I'm pretty confident that everybody in this room knows and loves America's ice cream sweetheart, Jeni Britton Bauer, and her company, Jeni Splendid Ice Creams. They've won virtually every award that their industry has to offer, including the James Beard Award, which is sort of the Oscars, isn't sort of, it is the Oscars of food. And this past year, Fast Company magazine called Jeni's one of the most creative companies in the world. Not one of the most creative ice cream companies in the world, not one of the most creative food companies in the world, but one of the most creative companies of any type in the world. But this past year, her company faced a challenge. And that challenge, as many of you know, was 1 pint of ice cream tested positive for listeria. And she made, along with her partners, the unprecedented decision to recall all of her frozen food product. That disruption has changed their business permanently. And as we'll hear from her in a discussion in just a second, that has been transformative for her company. So please join me in welcoming Jeni Britton Bauer to the TEDxColumbus stage. So what's new?
Nothing.
Nothing much? Too soon?
Hi.
Hey, you just heard in the introduction that most everybody in this room knows and read about the challenges that you faced over the last year with the 1 pint being tested positive for listeria. But I thought maybe we could begin right after that moment, so to take us back to sort of what happened, what it felt like emotionally, and literally, what you did next.
So when the moment, like the first moment we sort of found out that there was trouble, the ground falls out from underneath you. I mean, it's not a pretty moment. Everything gets upside down, and you start, we began immediately working on how to solve the immediate things in front of us. But the more interesting thing to me is then a couple weeks after that. So we tied everything up with the recall, and we did, I think, a pretty good job of that. And no regrets on how we handled that or whatever, but the interesting place that we ended up is a couple weeks later, when everything we had done was good. But then we wake up, and we've got this crazy landscape. I mean, literally, it's like a sci-fi movie where, you wake up and you're like, where am I? It was like Mad Max, barren landscape. What was just a couple weeks ago this lush, beautiful forest. We recalled 6 months worth of ice cream. Wow. And so, which I always joke in our company, or it's the joke now, right, that 6 months of inventory for us is like 8 months of work. Like, that's not nothing. That is a lot of work from farmers and producers and in our kitchens and everywhere. It takes a lot to do that. And so that's gone now. We have no kitchen now to open up. We've got work to do in our kitchen, which is going to take several weeks, if not a couple of months. And we have 23 stores that need to be open, and we have no way to sell any ice cream, and really no way to make ice cream at all. On top of that, we are coming out of winter as an ice cream company, literally begging for the first warm days.
Wow.
So that's where we were. And what an awesome challenge. I mean, couldn't have been a more amazing place to be in as a creative person, right?
Did it feel like that?
Sort of. I mean, what else is it going to feel like?
I could think of a few things.
Yeah,
some of Josh's earlier words.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of those, too.
So what did you do first? I mean, what are some of the first things that you tried to bring yourself back as an organization?
Well, what happened was that while there were various teams working on problems that we knew we had to solve, there were other teams kind of figuring out, what are we going to do? And so normal protocol was kind of out the window. I mean, normally, like for every 100 ideas, maybe one of them works in our company. But all of that was gone, and every idea was a good idea, and every idea was on the table. We had to get our kitchen, our stores open. We had to, in order to do that, we had to have ice cream, right?
Right.
So, but there was no way we were going to make all of the ice creams that we had. There was no way we were going to make 6 months of inventory, right, anytime soon. And so one of the ideas was, well, maybe we could open our stores with just one flavor, just sweet cream, which actually happens to be one of my favorite flavors, but it's the easiest one for us to make. I mean, it's just sweet cream and, really beautiful cream and grass-pastured milk and sugar. But we're like, maybe we could just open with sweet cream. Would that be too weird? And we're like, well, probably would be really fun for like a week, but maybe not 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, at the end, you start to think, well, that's going to do more damage than it helps. Another thing that we did during this time of like, well, all ideas are good ideas, whatever, we tried sort of in a sort of traditional co-packer way, we tried to get somebody else to make some ice creams for us that were sort of like our ice creams, you know, but, you know, we have no time to like source and make and do all the things that we normally do. So out of their normal catalog. And so, well, this would be like this, and this would be like this. So we get these ice creams into our space, and as we tasted them, we're like, well, this is definitely not our ice creams, like not at all. I mean, not the same cream, not the same milk, and it's not gonna like, I think at that moment we actually realized how unusual and how different we were. I think we've always been sort of doing what we do and not really comparing ourselves to other people or even other ice creams. And at that moment we realized, oh my gosh, there's just no way you can't make our ice creams. We are the only ones that can make our ice creams.
So what did you do next then? I mean, how did you get to a place finally where something started to click and work to bring the organization back to the Jenis we know and love?
Well, oddly, it sort of led to clarity, like this incredible focus for us as a company. We are not like the carry our mission around in your back pocket kind of company, you know what I mean? We've always been led by our values, and we've had a mission, but not like that kind of a mission. And so, so one thing that happened was that we just started to think, well, what is it that we do that's really different? And we started to really focus on that. And what is it that, that we have to do to be us? And the great thing is, you know, we've always thought of our company as a community. You know, every company is a community, but we put that first. I mean, we sort of think of everybody as a very important part of the community or whatever. And that includes people who work inside of our company, but also all of our farmers and growers and producers and the countless people we work with locally, nationally, internationally. But the interesting thing is we're starting to figure out, like, what is it that we do that we have to do? Some people are reaching out to us, like ice cream makers from Columbus and Ohio, almost all of them in Ohio, and several around the country, who said, what can we do to help? Come make your ice cream in our kitchen. We'll give you our kitchen. We'll make it for you. Just tell us what to do. Like, how can we help? And for me, that, like, I always say everything I learned about business I learned from sci-fi and fantasy. But for me, that started to feel like the Fellowship of the Rings, right? The Lord of the Rings sort of thing. And so, so I think, like, well, what is it that we do that we have to do? And what is it that they do really well? Other people, other makers, other whatever. And how can we combine that to be this, like, fellowship model with this one quest to make the best ice cream the world's ever known? And that became this really interesting thing. We still call it the fellowship model, actually.
So in my world, we call that open innovation. In fact, you were just making me think, sitting here, that we teach disruptive innovation at Ohio State at the Fisher College of Business, and that concept it was coined by a guy named Clayton Christensen. And one of the tenets of disruptive innovators is companies that insource and do the things that they do better than any other company or any other organization out there. But they outsource the things that are just good enough, the things that everybody else can do as well or better than you. It sounds like maybe that's what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, it's also may come as a bit of a surprise in that I've never felt comfortable or identified with really like the whole concept of artisan and artisanal, even though I think we've totally created this category in ice cream and many people are following it and they're calling it that and whatever. And artisan is a real category, and I love well-made, well-crafted things, but I feel like, you know, it's like the cobbler in the corner making the same shoes you've made for 300 years.
Right.
That's like sort of artisanal for me. And I feel like we, especially with ice cream, have so much more to do. And so for me, the future is, and always has been, I mean, even since the beginning of our company, really about, but especially now, taking sort of some of the values of the artisanal world of craftsmanship and quality and some of our values too, and community and everything else, and then combining those with the tools of the 21st century and science and technology and transportation, and everything's different now. And so how can that impact ice cream? Because our mission is to make better ice creams and bring people together, those two things, as a community to do that. And there's a lot of work to do yet within that. But anyway, so involving more people actually is turning out to be pushing that mission.
So specifically, you're still really focusing on the recipes, and someone else is producing the product, or what?
We recipes, but it's so much more than that even, because the recipes are, we develop the recipes, but sourcing and creating, we make ingredients in our kitchen that we're then sending to other kitchens. But sourcing is really big because it's such a big network. That's just something that we do that's just very unusual in all the food world. Just getting ingredients directly from people who are growing or making them, that's really tough. And many of our ingredients come from farms and come from people who are producers or makers themselves and not just big companies from one catalog. And so that is an enormous undertaking and one we think is very important and very special. And so bringing all those things and connecting those dots and getting them into our kitchen, processed and then out to where we can freeze them into the ice cream is kind of like what we do best. And then of course there's the R&D aspect of it because it isn't just flavors, it's also the texture and the body of the ice cream. When you make really interesting flavors, you have to be more concerned actually with texture issues of the ice cream or whatever, and that's where we spend a lot of time. So
does someone else producing the product actually hinder sort of the quality of the product, or does it help you as a result?
Well, it ought to help us. I mean, their equipment is the equipment that we kind of aspire to. We just tell exactly what to do, and it will do that. So as long as we have the ingredients lined up and everything else is perfect, and the cream and the milk and all of that is the same, then we put it through the machines, and the machines are actually way better than the ones that we have. I mean, we had like the $100,000 machine, which is a lot, I know, but like they have like the $1 million machine or whatever. I mean, it's a different thing. And consistency. I mean, a lot of things that we were doing sort of by hand ought to be much more consistent now, which is actually really a good thing.
So you can concentrate on what you do best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's great. I heard you backstage making some reference to that film, The Martian, and I was wondering what that was about. Am I throwing you off?
Great, yeah. Well, again, it goes back to sci-fi and fantasy for me because everything seems to or whatever. But no, I mean, I think that was when I saw that movie, that was like my summer, right?
Wow.
Did you guys see that movie? Like, I was like, we as a team, as a company, woke up on Mars, and we were like, holy shit. And we all started working together and doing things, and then all of a sudden we started to get pings from our community, which was our suppliers and the makers or whatever, but also the rest of our community, and that started to slowly like come together and bring us back.
So you were the Martian in this case, I take it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And your resources helped you get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, creative thinking and community.
It's great. So where are you today? I mean, philosophically, both personally and as an organization. Are you changed or different?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting what crisis will do. I mean, there was no question we were sort of, the floor dropped out. We were in this place of sink or swim. And, what that does is it sort of helps you really get really focused and reimagine. We've been able to reimagine our company, which has really been so much fun and so interesting. And what's happened is that we feel like a totally different organization. I feel like a different person. When I look back, pre-April 22nd, if I look at pictures of me, I feel like it was heavier and more sort of took everything too seriously a little bit. And if I look at our packaging and our company back then, too, I also feel like it feels really heavy, almost like maybe we just took it all too seriously or something. And now it feels like having been through this together with our team and with everyone, like, I don't know, we just have this enormous sense of gratitude that's really difficult to explain. And I think people who've been through these kinds of really tough things get there, and you have to go through it in order to understand it. But it's almost like the clarity that we found is just amazing. And
that's funny because I would think that most people out here in the audience would think of Jeni's as always been a really grateful company, a company full of really not only cool people, but people who are really happy to be doing what they're doing and really gracious, but you actually feel more grateful as a result?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and we always have been honored and grateful to do what we do. I mean, there's no question about that. But you get to a deeper, you just get to a deeper level of clarity. Clarity is really the big word for us, I think. I don't know a better definition of happiness than just knowing what you're here to do and why.
That's great. Well, I guess in closing, do you have any advice for the folks out here that might be going through a personal or professional disruption and maybe what you've learned from that?
I mean, it's just like what we were just talking about, just the that you would never wish this on anybody. You would never wish crisis on anybody, and especially yourself. You'd never burn it to the ground. I mean, You just don't do that. We don't, we move forward and collect things. We don't edit enough or whatever. And so crisis in a way is a way to shed a lot of things. It's actually an opportunity. So on one hand, it's really, really hard. But on the other hand, you can you can find clarity and you can actually use it as this very narrow window of your life to reimagine everything. And it may or may not, hopefully won't, come back again. And so it's this opportunity that you have to actually jump on, kind of lean into the swerve,
That's great. Well, and just in the time we have left, are there any surprises coming our way or any new things that you want to share with us?
Oh, well, we have an amazing collection coming out in January. It's called American Licks.
What is that?
Well, so we're pretending that we're, I'm sorry, I wasn't even prepared to talk about this, but we're pretending that we're like this big design museum, and we're going to show ice creams. So it's called American Licks, Ice Cream as a Living Artifact from 1865 to 1965, and it's very academic, but the flavors are like green mint chip, which we have never done before in the history of Jeni's. It's colored with algae.
That's great. Really?
Yeah.
So they're the regular flavors
But it's meant to
reinterpreted.
take you back in time. It's the idea of a living artifact, which is incorporating memory with actual sort of artifacts of history, which are recipes that would never live up to what our memory is. And so we're incorporating all of that. So the idea is that when you actually eat them, it'll take you back. Like they're more authentic, they're more real than real.
More real than real.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right, we'll close on that note. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Good luck
Thank
and
you.
Godspeed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right.